Hey everyone, Evan Kirstel today live from the top of Mount Washington, New Hampshire. Boy, is it cold up here, Ray.
It's below zero the other day. 107 degrees below zero, actually.
Yeah, well today it's a balmy 10 degrees and I reference the Mount Washington because you're my favorite entrepreneur in New Hampshire. Maybe introduce yourself, Ray, and the team and the mission at Unified Office.
So, for those that don't know me, I'm Ray Pasquale, veteran of many internet, well, I say many, several very successful internet startups in the greater Boston area over the years. I was one of those early guys that actually worked on internet protocols, including the post office protocol, which was the early mail protocol that email protocol, I guess you should say, and built big routers, switches, worked for large companies that built products that had to sustain earthquakes, floods, all those kinds of things. And with me on the team is Tom Phelan and another. We have probably about 150 years of collective telecom experience. Let me put it to you that way. And so that's what really comprised Unified Office, is that kind of deep knowledge of not just internet, but also telephony as well, which allowed us to build this really unique company called Unified Office.
Unique indeed. And we used to call you guys a VoIP company back in the day, which I don't know if today is more of an insult or not. But Unified Office has become much more than a VoIP company, and you actually perfected VoIP in the kind of early days of the company with some patented technologies. So how
Well,
did you evolve from a VoIP company to a technology company, really?
it was never really the mission to build a VoIP company. My mission was really how do I take voice and make it go to work for people? And when I started thinking that, I thought when I started socializing that back in the late, I would say 2008, 2009 timeframe, nobody understood what the hell I was saying. And, I kind of knew what I was saying, or thinking at least, but I wasn't sure how I was going to go about doing it. But the very first thing I had to do was make voice over IP literally work. It had to be reliable as the old phones were, right? Before the internet, before VoIP came. So, as you know, a lot of VoIP companies came into being over the last 15 to 25 years as basically just inexpensive ways to communicate anywhere you wanted to. And there was little or no thought put into the reliability and quality of it, which is very hard to do because the internet's built for non-real-time applications, right? So the first thing I had to do was figure out, how do I make voice over the internet work without using any special tricks like MPLS tunnels or expensive telephony circuits? And that took a few years to finally figure out. And that background in building internet protocols and building really large internet networks back in the day really helped. So we patented this over-the-top transmission network platform that we call HQRP, which stands for highest quality routing protocol. And at that point, we knew we had a rock solid voice layer. And so we were the best VoIP company you'll ever have if that's all you use this for. But again, how do I make it go to work for you? So once we built that bedrock platform, the idea was, now how do we then develop these value added layered applications that sit on top of that make it really valuable, turns voice into a real asset instead of just a commodity. And so we started building things like real-time visual analytics. We implemented various AI techniques back in the day that when, for example, the early customers for us were pizza, Domino's in particular, we would go into a typical Domino's restaurant with our platform. And it's a small platform. It has a little Linux-based server that we're a hybrid cloud company, so it's not total cloud, which is really important. Because without that, we wouldn't have the business continuity, and HQRP wouldn't have the visibility into the premise. In any event, we built real-time analytics that essentially, with AI techniques, that answered the calls coming in to the store. And it was on virtually unlimited. There was no limit to the calls that we can take in for you. We would engage the customer with our voice software that we would answer it with, kind of think in terms of you're the telephone guy, of an IVR kind of a thing. Mm-hmm. And from that point, we had speedometers and different visual metrics and audible metrics, so that eventually we would engage the customer while you're still making the previous order of pizza, and then we would ring the phones and say, hey, time to take the order for the next caller. Anyway, so it's kind of a convoluted explanation, but suffice to say, it's a really easy platform. And those analytics did things that nobody else did. And I had never thought of how could that platform deliver between 8 and 35% increases in revenue over a phone system at the end of the day. It was unheard of. And that's kind of how I started doing things. Like now I'm really making it valuable, right? I'm adding to your revenue. And then we started to sort of, kind of expand from there and get into the Internet of Things by watching over the refrigeration equipment, tying that into our HQRP platform, because not only is voice important, but sensors have a voice, right? And when they deliver important information, you cannot send that over the internet and expect that. You don't want that to be lost. You left the door open to your refrigerator walk-in in Chicago. You want to know that right away. So we just kind of grew from there into these different layers. And, we're really a communications technology company, as I described to somebody recently. We have a little AI, we do a little IoT, and we do a whole lot of other stuff with voice to make it valuable for our customers.
That's super exciting, and I love your enthusiasm for small businesses, and small business owners. I mean, these are the people, the folks that get overlooked by telcos and the big phone companies and big MSPs. The dentists' offices, the doctors' offices, the car dealers, the quick serve restaurants. They've been kind of left out of a lot of the communications technology revolution, and you have a passion for serving them. First of all, why? But no, just kidding. I mean, as a small business owner yourself, you have a lot of like empathy with those folks. You really connect with those small business owners. I don't know, maybe it's a New Hampshire thing, where small business kind of rules the roost.
I kind of feel like if you're going to get up every day and do something while you're on the planet, why wouldn't you want to do something that mattered? Right. I mean, I kind of feel like my company is really giving service to our
Mm.
customers. We're providing not a service technically, but basically I feel it's in our best interest as a former Boy Scout that I want to be of service to my customers. And that's kind of how I view what we do for them. Um, and it works. And by the way, I would argue that the larger companies really haven't driven a whole lot of innovation. When I think about things have gone over the last 15 to 20 years, it really is in that small market where things like this guy behind me, right? This robot that
What is that? Is it a robot? Is it an iPad on wheels, or
this
what's
is
going on here?
this is Ralphie the robot. Ralphie is a built for the hospitality industry and the restaurant industry for doing table bussing, for example.
Oh
We're
wow.
we're using Ralphie here in our company to be a concierge. So when you come into the lobby to visit us, you want to go to the conference room, the back kitchen, you want to come to my office, you touch it, Ralphie will take you there. But there's a number of other really important use cases we're working on for not just the hotel industry, not just for restaurants, but also automobile dealerships. There's an
Mm.
enormous benefit to this guy. And he's not here to replace a human. He's here to only help humans do better
Mm.
and deal with, labor shortages and things of that nature. Anyway, it's a lot of fun. We hope to have that down at some point in one of our favorite hotels in Disney. And Ralphie would be acting as a concierge and buying you Disney tickets and calling you Ubers and those kinds of things, and taking to the elevator in the restaurants. And so, working with small business forces you to think like this. They have
Mm.
unique challenges that large companies either overlook, take for granted, or everybody just kind of they go to work and they go home and they don't really work hard to innovate. It's hard for me to explain, but the small business guy is confronted with things that a large company just wouldn't see. So I argue a lot of innovation is driven by the small business guy, the SMB market, which is defined to be between 1 and 500 employees by the SBA.
Well, in that definition, you're a small business as well, and yet you have a ton of innovation under your belt at Unified Office. In fact, you just received another patent. You have multiple patents.
We
What
did.
was the latest patent about?
So that was for our hospitality, where our concierge communications platform. Think about the hotel. Here's so that what drove me to do this was staying at a Marriott in New York City a few years back. In the room were two iPads and a telephone. The telephone hadn't been used in probably 25 years. The one iPad turned the lights on and off and regulated the temperature in the room. And the other iPad actually connected to their on-premise restaurants. You could either order room service, make a reservation. And I thought to myself, one of those things is making money. The other two are cost. If I could collapse that into a single platform and then think about returning passive revenue generation to the hotel room without somebody having to use the phone to do that, right? Prior to cell phones, the hotels made money on what? Using their $1.40 a minute to pick up that old Mitel handset or whoever made it. And then when that died, they tried to make money off the television, right? And the set-top boxes by downloading movies. And then, of course, Netflix disintermediated that. And I thought to myself, I develop a platform where it's a tablet with a handset, or maybe with not a handset, and develop the technology that allowed you to place advertisements on that
Mm.
tablet phone in the room. And so the very nature of you having placed an ad on a phone in 400 rooms means that you're being paid by that sponsor. And that room is generating passive revenue as a result. And of course, we get the data as you start to use it and touch the screen. People are very tactile, right? When you see something moving and changing, like, what is that? You're likely to try it and touch it. And so that's the patent that we've got, and that patent was awarded not just here but also in Europe, which is important as we start to think about expanding into Europe this year. So it's a very extensible platform. It reaches across multiple verticals. In fact, we're in Hawaii this week installing our system into various rooms, into the wellness rooms at the Honolulu Bay Hotel. And so we're all over the place, doing.
I would have been able to go do the installation. I wish you had contacted me. I would
Sorry.
have happily learned to install the system at
Well, given
that
you're in
hotel.
Mount Washington, I mean, come on, who would want to go
Yeah,
there?
it's chilly. Well, speaking of chilly, we're going to go someplace next week that is actually the opposite of chilly, which is Fort Lauderdale, Florida. You guys are actually doing a session on the hybrid workforce and workplace. What factors really matter. So, what say you about this new world of work we find ourselves in? It's pretty chaotic and confusing, huh?
I don't think so, actually. I don't. I think we're
Oh,
making a bigger deal out of this than need to be. I mean, we've always been. I've worked in high tech for most of my life, and it's always been a hybrid work environment for me. How did you get to Fort Lauderdale so
I
quickly?
just teleported instantaneously, and this is going to be the view from the hotel in
That's
Fort
good.
Lauderdale next week. So, really excited to be there. If you haven't heard about IT Expo, check it out at IT Expo. But yes, so you're not confused by this crazy
No,
new
oh
world
no.
of
I mean,
hybrid remote work.
my marketing person lives outside of London. I mean, by
Hmm.
definition, he's a remote worker, right? I mean, we've been this way for years. This is nothing new. So I'm not sure what this new thing is, but I don't see anything new in it. And by the way, that was one of the primary drivers of inventing voice over IP back in the day, was to
Hmm.
allow people to be nomadic, to work where you wanted to work or where you had to work without sacrificing, that sort of office experience. Now it is true that if you're a permanent at home worker, it's really difficult to become part of the collective collaborative fabric of a company. That part is really difficult because we are social creatures at the end of the day. But look, there are certain people that you work from home, right? But I also see you a lot, right? Person to person when we go to shows together, and so that kind of that connective fabric has to be there. If you just work at home and you never connect with anybody ever, uh, it's really difficult to become part of the cultural fabric of a company.
Yeah,
Uh,
you built a culture at Unified Office that involves, very close collaboration, obviously a startup in the early days, and side by side working and brainstorming and integration and development of software requires a different way of working
Yeah.
So, are you happy for all your folks to be remote, or do you need that core team in the
Well,
office
you
for?
actually have to have a core team. I mean, what in the office, there's no, we've tried this
Mhm,
permanently at home kind of a thing during COVID, right? And it was just a terrible experience. I mean, people
mhm,
missed each other, the hallway conversations. Hey,
mhm,
Ray, I got an idea. Look at this.
mhm.
You know, I'm on a grease board, and all of a sudden, 30 seconds later, we've created another feature that we're going to roll out, right? And our productivity really dropped significantly. I can't really put a number on it, but it was not good. And then as things started to develop, and the vaccines or whatever you want to call those shots or whatever, we had to get people back into the office at least part of the week. Being completely remote was just doesn't work for a company like ours. I'm not suggesting to you that it doesn't work for a medical billing company
Mhm,
where you can just be remote, you're a commodity, the processing and
mhm.
all that, but it certainly doesn't work when you're trying to really innovate uh, you know things that you just can't do that remotely 100%, I guess is what I'm saying. So
Yeah, and of course those frontline workers, which you serve so well at places like Domino's Pizza and car
yeah, the
dealerships,
firefighters, yeah,
you can't exactly work from home as a car sales. Well, maybe you can with digital, but in any case, you've conquered the quick serve space. You're conquering the hospitality space. What's next? Are there other verticals and
oh yeah, I mean,
marketplaces that you think would be a great fit for Unified Office?
I think the subcategory under hotels wellness is a big thing. For we have an aging population in this country, right? And not just the aging category, but everybody's into wellness, and these new amenity hotels, for example, are sponsoring their wellness rooms. They actually have floors of wellness clinics. So you're in the 30th floor of a hotel, you get onto the first, second, third floor, and you get IV vitamins in your arm or visit with a naturopathic doctor. I mean, it's a whole subcategory. I think it's really growing for us. We're starting to see a little bit more uptake in smart cities. But what I mean by that is smart city developments that are planned communities with autonomous buses and shuttles to pick you up
Mm,
and those kinds of things. And then the homes will be outfitted with communications platforms that you can do all kinds of things with. Um, and that is an area where that patent and that concierge, what I call the concierge device platform, we don't have a name for it just yet, because in each category that we put it in, it'll have a different product name. And That's going to make a huge difference in those categories. And so, smart city, that pull is where we're starting to see now, uh, starting, I think, in New Mexico. I got to think of, I got to talk to my salesperson exactly where, but it's a big, big opportunity that we're working on in the Midwest that I really can't talk about just yet. But that we're starting to see
oh,
in there. So I
I
would say
love the idea of planned communities. You can kind of reinvent the infrastructure from the ground up. You're
the
not
ground
tied
up.
to so much legacy. So that's super exciting. Well, I'll see you in Fort Lauderdale. I encourage everyone to reach out to Ray, say hello, go to his session on the future of work and the hybrid workforce, and we'll
And
get
we're
some
at booth
sun.
153.
Yes, absolutely. All right, Ray. Well, it's so good catching up. Good to see and hear you again.
Yeah,
And
good to see you.
have a good week.
I got to get working with Ralphie here, so it'll be a lot of fun.
Hi, Ralphie.
Bye.